Joining me now is our in-house law firm and two people who know a thing or two about crafting closing arguments. Andrew Weissman is former general counsel at the FBI, and Neil Katyal is the former acting U.S. Solicitor General. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to start with you. What advice would you give to the prosecution heading into closing arguments? What do they need to do?
I'll tell you what they need to do. There's no way I would give advice to Josh Steinglass. He's tried more cases than I have, than Neil and us combined. I mean, he's a real pro. This is what I expect. I think first you're going to see a timeline with really letting the jury see from beginning to end how all the evidence fits together. And you're going to see that in a sort of PowerPoint form where they lay out all of the sort of so-called hard evidence, the emails, the phone records. Then they'll layer in the sort of softer evidence, which is from witnesses, and show how that all fits together. Second, they will address Michael Cohen. I think you'll see them talk about all of the proof that was in place prior to his testifying to show just how strong this case is. And then finally, I think they need to really argue the case about why it would be so ridiculous to think that Alan Weisselberg and Michael Cohen, who clearly knew the scheme and orchestrated it, would have kept this from Donald Trump. And there are just a ton of reasons why it was in their interest to let him know what happened. It would be totally against their interest not to do so. And there's lots of corroborating evidence, including Hope Hicks, who says it would be completely out of character for Michael Cohen to have kept this from him. Indeed, I think all of the attacks on Michael Cohen by the defense will be flipped to say that is exactly why he wouldn't have done something like this out of generosity. He would have actually had 130,000 reasons to tell Donald Trump because he wanted to get repaid.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know you've made that point before, which has stuck with me. Now, Neil, I want to ask you first if you have anything to add to what Andrew said, and also what we should expect from the defense, given what we've seen over the last couple of weeks in their closing argument.
Yeah, the first thing I'd say, Jen, is it's just significant that we're finally at closing arguments after Trump's repeated attempts to delay this, to stop this trial, even just a couple days ago, rushing to the Court of Appeals, saying the judge has to be recused for bias and stuff. All of that has been beaten back by the Appellate Court in New York. And so now we are finally going to get to closing arguments. And I think what the Trump defense is going to do is basically to say, this is not a case about Donald Trump, it's a case about Michael Cohen. And they'll put Michael Cohen on trial. They'll call him a liar. They'll say he was convicted because he was a liar, that he's in it for his own ends, that he's in it for ego because he's not a spurned lover, but a spurned lawyer by Donald Trump and the like. And what the prosecution is going to say, picking up on what Andrew said just a moment ago, and I totally agree with it, is that this is not just a case about Michael Cohen. It's a case about Michael Cohen plus. Cohen is just gravy. And it's things like the Hope Hicks testimony that Andrew referred to, but it's also handwritten notes that we've got, and those checks that you just flashed on the screen a moment ago, which picks up on paragraph 33 in the complaint. These are checks that Donald Trump himself signed. And so that shows knowledge of the whole scheme. And I think at the end of the day, the Trump defense is going to play trying to get to beyond a reasonable doubt, just getting one juror who's going to say, hey, I disagree, because in our system that means you can't put him in jail. And the prosecution is going to say, hey, this is common sense. We're talking about a guy, Donald Trump, who watched every penny. Do you really think that he would have been cool with all this money going out of his account without knowing it? Do you really think he would just reimburse $430,000 or whatever that number is without some knowledge about what was going on? Of course not. So it's a common sense case, and I suspect that it's going to be successful.
Andrew, let me ask you, I mean, jury instructions is something that most of us have not heard about or didn't know a lot about before the last couple of weeks. It's quite important in this case. What are you looking for as we learn more about what the jury instructions are later this week?
Well, jury instructions are important, Jen, but I actually think they're kind of not the story here. Alvin Bragg would not have brought a case if he was seeking a jury instruction that was not down the middle. And I think here, I actually think most people should just not worry about what the actual charge is, because it's going to be the straightforward, what's called sort of standard jury charges. They're sort of uniform charges that the judge is going to give. Yes, there's some argument around the edges, and there's some important charges, but none of it is controversial. This is what the judge is going to give is just straight law. There are some pieces that are useful, but I actually think this is one where, of the things to worry about, it is really like, will the jury, in many ways, is there a holdout juror who sort of made up their mind sort of before they came in? Are jurors going to feel, because it's a former president, that they're going to hold the state to an even higher standard than proof beyond a reasonable doubt, even if it's just unconsciously, that they sort of feel like there should be more, because you do have to rely, I think in this case, both on direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. So I think those are the things that I'm sort of focused on, and sort of how the arguments go on the facts. But the law is pretty straightforward here. So that's a long way of sort of fighting the hypothetical on something not to really worry about.
Thank you for easing our burden on that, of the things we need to become experts on. Andrew Weissmann, Neal Katyal, I will see you a lot this week. We will all see you a lot this week, I'm certain. Thank you both so much for joining me.